अच्छा
एक प्रॉब्लम है, साउंड सिस्टम वगैरह का बहुत दिन से मैं ट्रैक डाउन कर रहा हूँ।
आया हुआ क्या? किधर?
पे काम बाहर है, चाय टी वाले जगह जानते हो बोला
तो कोई बिठा दें तो दर्द सुन ले बैठ के।
साउंड।
वालेकुम सलाम। थोड़ी देर आप भी दर्द सुन ले यार।
So I would like to, but I have to work on the system. So I know.
That's fine. So we'll do without the mic, you're saying.
The mic. Do we need the mic or not?
Oh, that's good.
Okay, that's good. That way I can listen. And that way I can get you too.
How are you connected to Miraj?
I'm the founder.
क्योंकि ये डोनेशन पीछे फिर इंसान जब अल्लाह के सामने पेश हो रहा है तो अच्छे कपड़ों में, आप किसी ऑफिसर के सामने ये कपड़े पहन के नहीं, इनसे कन्फर्म कर लें। ये मुझसे ज़्यादा आलिम है, इनसे कन्फर्म कर लें।
शुक्रिया।
मैं जाऊँ?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. In last 2 weeks, we were talking about the life of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu an, about 2 of the crises that happened. The economic crisis. One was the year of drought or Amur Ramada, year of ashes. And then we talked about the plague or ta'un that happened in the time of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anh. And one commonality that we see in both those instances that happened, that how those crises were taken care of in a very rapid way, smooth way, those crises were taken care of. And we are talking about the time in which there are the means of communications at those times were not as fast as we see today. On the other hand, what we see is even though those crises, when they happen nowadays, we see that those crises continue to go on for years and years, sometimes even decades. Like, for example, if you look at an earthquake that happened in Pakistan in 2010 or so, to take care of the ramification of that earthquake itself took years and years. And we are talking about the time when there is an independent country over there that's supposed to be taking care of the affairs of the people. And same way we find many other places that crises come up, and the resolution of those crises, we see that it takes very, very long time. Now, how is it that in the time of Umar ibn Khattab and even in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we see Abu Bakr and Umar ibn Khattab and Uthman bin Affan and Ali, different kinds of crises came up, but they were resolved. And it's not that those situations came up and like nowadays, when something like this happened, right away the first thing comes to the minds of the people is, okay, let's start collecting donations. Let's start collecting donations. We don't see in general like that just donation boxes are continued to grow in the time of the Khulafa Rashidin. Now, what is it that they were able to resolve those issues with not as many resources as we have today, but they were able to resolve them? And that is something that we have to look into in the next few talks, inshallah, will be about that how the economic institutions or financial institutions and judiciary institutions were run in the time of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh. As we are going in chronological order, we are discussing the life of Umar ibn Khattab's era when he was the Khalifa or Amir al-Mu'mineen. So these talks will be covering specifically that what are the sources of income that Umar ibn Khattab had at that time as the head of the state. That's one thing. And this is how economic system works, which is how you collect the funds and how you distribute the funds. Yeah? So this is and while you are collecting and distributing, there's an administration for both of these actions. A lot of time people mix, when we talk about the financial institutions or economic system with economic science. And it's important for us to distinguish that. Like for example, the time and era we are living in today, when the economic problem is defined, it is defined as that man has infinite needs and the resources or scarcity of resources. That's the basic economic 101 that everybody learns, even at the high school level. And it's been pounded on the minds of the people to the point that as if that is the real thing. While there is a problem here, the problem here is it's not the issue of scarcity of resources at all, as a matter of fact, when it comes to fulfilling the needs of the people on the planet. The resources that exist are multiple folds to take care of everybody on the planet. It's the issue of the distribution of the resources, distribution of the wealth. And we have talked about this in the past as well. What we see is not the issue, the economic problem is not that the world or Muslim Ummah does not have enough resources. And I gave the example a couple of weeks ago as well, and I'm going to repeat that so kind of we can make sense out of it. That continuously on a daily basis, about 25,000 people die out of hunger in the world. 25,000, which is about 9.1 million per year. But more people are dying in the world because of the sicknesses or diseases which happen because of overeating, obesity. So it's not the issue of only that people do not have enough to eat. Cases are there where food is destroyed actually, intentionally to keep the prices up. And when you look at the problem from that perspective of men have infinite needs and scarcity of resources, then what you do is they say, okay, then you have to increase the production, and that's the solution. That's what the economic science teaches in the name of economic system, based on that, even though that's a science of how you increase the production. Now, think of this way. This room, for example, on a daily basis, number of people sitting here, let's say they need about 50 breads a day. And we were producing only 30. So you can increase the production to make it 50, but Brother Abdurrahman comes and he buys all 50. From the perspective of the people who are trying to solve the problem, they have solved the problem already because they increased the production, they produced 50 breads that are needed for the people. But the problem happened here is Abdurrahman took all the bread. So the rest of the people are starving, or they are at the mercy of Abdurrahman to sell him at any price he wishes. And this is what we see in general at large is happening. So in the time of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh, we have to understand that what were the resources or sources of income, and then we talk about how they were distributed and how they were administered. Now, why am I stressing this point of that is because a lot of time when as a Muslim Ummah, when we talk about the economic system or even having funds to run a state, we start drawing blanks. We don't know what does it mean by that. The only thing that we can think of economic system in Islam is, oh, there is a zakah and there is no riba, there is no usury. And then after that, few here and there issues we find out about how to buy and sell, or whether I should participate in the stocks or shares or not, and so on and so forth. And then we stop there. While at the same time we also say Islam is a comprehensive way of life. Islam provides us solutions for all the affairs of life, including my economic life, including my judiciary life, my ruling, whatsoever action I do, social life. There is a solution for that. So hence, we will inshallah look into that. And what we see in the time of Umar, the institutions that were there, they were collecting the income for the state to run. That includes zakat was one of them. Yes, jizya was another one. And we'll talk about that one by one inshallah. Kharaj was another thing. Now kharaj, inshallah when we come to there we'll talk. And ushur is another. And then you have mal fay or ghanima. Now that's some of the things I'm talking about. On top of it, Islam also discusses the issue of who's the one who can own what? Meaning, what wealth can be owned by individuals, what wealth can be owned by the state, and what wealth is supposed to be owned by public. Now, that public ownership is something that is completely been ignored today, and people have no idea. As a matter of fact, when somebody tries to talk about public ownership, right away they go, oh, you're becoming socialist. We're talking about hukum shara'i here. Islam is not talking about anybody can own anything, or everything is owned by the state, or everything is owned by the public. Rather, Islam defines what is public ownership, what is private ownership, and what is state ownership. And that's what we see in the time of Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu. Now when it comes to zakah, or first to understand the wealth. In Islam, the wealth, everything as a matter of fact, belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever wealth we have, actually it belongs to Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah has made us temporary owners on certain things. When I'm saying temporary, because we live in this world for a temporary period of time. After that, we are gone, and somebody else takes over the ownership. As a matter of fact, according to Hadith Rasulullah, and the meaning of the Hadith goes like this: that people tend to love the wealth of their inheritors. And Sahaba asked, what does that mean basically? And the response was, look, what you eat, what you drink, the food you have eaten, you defecate. The clothes that you wear, they become old and then you throw them away. So that was something that you spend on yourself. And then the second part of the wealth is you spend in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's there forever. And the third piece of wealth, which is the wealth, as a matter of fact, people love the most, is the one neither spent in the path of Allah, neither spent on yourself. It's sitting there for who? Inheritors will take over. And people love to count that wealth the most. How much my bank account now? How much gold I have? How much this I have, that I have? And they continue to see how it's growing, but that's not spent in any of the ways that's supposed to be spent, and hence, it is the wealth of the inheritors that the person is loving. And that's the reality of us. So in the time of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, he understood this is the wealth from Allah, and Allah has made him responsible for the wealth that is being collected and has to be given back to the owners they belong to. So when it comes to the first source, which is the zakah, so as I said, I'm going to repeat them. So zakah, jizya, kharaj, ushur, and we'll talk one by one later on, or the ghanima and the fay. And besides that, there's more wealth, as I said, we have to understand, which is the public property or state property or private property, and how it needs to be taken care of. Now, when it comes to zakah, one thing to remember is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has very clearly defined the recipients of the zakah. So there are two aspects of zakah. One is the collection, and second is distribution. When it comes to the collection, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has very clearly mentioned about the method of collection, as a matter of fact. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Tawbah, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم خذ من أموالهم صدقة تطهرهم وتزكيهم بها وصلي عليهم. Says, take from their wealth, O Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, O Prophet, the zakah, the charity, to purify and bless them and pray for them. So purification of the wealth is supposed to be done by the head of the state to take the money, the zakah from the people. When it comes to our zakah, this is one of the pillars of Islam. So when it comes to the real way that Islam has dictated us to collect, that part is missing today. We don't even have it. And this is the irony for us, as a matter of fact. If we ask anybody about how does, for example, capitalistic system or the democracy works, or ruling system democracy works, everybody will know the branches of the state: judiciary, legislation, and executive. So these three branches, even you start memorizing them when you were in your 3rd, 4th grade, 5th grade, and continue talking about over and over. But when it comes to Islam, and I am not just saying it for the sake of making a point here for brothers here, even if we go to many of the learned people within us, when it comes to ask them about, okay, what is the structure Islam should have? Again, we would not know, because this is something systemically have been removed from our minds. We can talk about and fight about all sorts of things, whether the masah on the khuffain should be done or not, or whether the salah can be combined in the case of traveling or not, whether it should be shortened or not. These things we will be talking over and over and continue to talk about that. There's nothing wrong to talk about that, by the way. We should have the ilm, the knowledge about that subject. But at the same time, we should not be thinking of the ilm or the knowledge is restricted of Islam to just these matters. It's more than that. So when we talk about the economic system, the zakah, Allah has commanded to take the zakah. And that's what we see in the time of Rasulullah, in the time of Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr even went and fought against the people who were not giving the zakat to him, that they were giving to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The history books talk about that from the perspective of those people are referred as murtaddeen zakah, the apostates of the zakah. And then the zakah hukum is إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين وعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم في الرقاب والغارمين في سبيل الله وابن السبيل فريضة من الله والله عليم حكيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that indeed that the zakah is for these 8 categories: fuqara, masakin, amilin zakah, the ones who are collecting, so poor, needy, and the one who work to collect the zakah and to change the hearts of the people towards the deen, and freeing the slaves, and the one who are under the debts, and the one who are fighting in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the one who is wabn as-sabil. Wabn as-sabil is a person who is traveling. He doesn't have, even though he could be a rich person, but he does not have access to his wealth. So these 8 categories are the one. So zakah money cannot be used to build a masjid. It cannot be used to build an institution. It cannot be used for paying the salaries of the people. It cannot go on and on and on. So it is for their specific 8 categories, and they are the one who should get the possession. We should not be deciding for them what they're going to be doing, because you think that he needs the money for that. Maybe he has a higher need than that. And this is the haqq, this is the right of those 8 categories of the people. So in the time of Umar radiallahu anh made sure that the zakah was collected the way it was done in the time of Abu Bakr, the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before him, and this is what he used to refer to the actions that he was doing. That the way that the the two who were better than me did the actions, this is the way he continued on. Now, zakah can also be, of course, on the crops, which is called ushr, and that ushr can be half of the ushr sometime. It depends on how the agricultural work was done. Meaning, if it's from the natural water, then it's the ushr. But if it's from that you had to put tube well or something, or dig up the canal or something for getting the water in your way, then that zakah becomes 1/2 of the ushr. Ushr is 1/10, and half of 1/10 become 1/20th, which is 5%. Okay, and okay, so that's about the zakah when it comes to that. And in the time of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anh, Umar, because this is when it comes to the distribution of the zakah, Umar took away the mu'allafatul qulub, the zakah to be given to softening the hearts of the people, because that's needed. It doesn't mean that he took the hukum away or something, because it's up to the Khalifa how he distributes the wealth. It doesn't have to be exactly same portion to be given on those 8 categories. It depends on the needs of the people. If there are more fuqara, more masakin, and their needs to be taken care of, and there's no people who are under debts, then that should be taken care of. You're not going to create people with the debts then. Yeah? Same way, because the Muslim Ummah became strong enough, their strength was at that level that they did not need people to be, their hearts to be softened for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala this way by giving them the money from the zakah. Again, that does not mean that he abrogated the hukum or something. He's looking at from the perspective of that it was not needed. Okay, so that's about the zakah when it comes to that. And the last part about zakah is, which has been incorrectly understood sometime, that even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given these 8 categories of the zakah, and one of them is fi sabilillah. Fi sabilillah means in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we just translate literally. But that actually means fighting in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now a trend has started that many times people are using the wealth of the zakah for building the masajid, building the centers, building the institutions, and even giving the tuitions and these kind of things of the people. Now, this is something, it's not what fi sabilillah means, because that kills the purpose of mentioning the other 7 categories, because those 7 categories are also in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you cannot say in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means just you can do whatever you want. And fuqaha has in the past always mentioned that it meant this is for fighting in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are the ones they can utilize this wealth. And this is again, is the Khalifa is the one who's distributing the wealth, which is not there, hence people today are doing on the individual basis. Now, about the jizya, inshallah, I can just quickly talk about it. Other resources we'll talk next week. Jizya is a tax that's been taken from in an Islamic state, and in the time of Umar, it was taken from the people as it was taken to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr as well. When the area was open, the Muslims were La ikraha fi din, there's no compulsion in deen. So it is a choice for everybody. If you want to stay in your deen other than Islam, you can, but you will be paying that small amount of tax. And when we talk about this tax is for their own protection. And then after paying the tax, they are not the one who have to be, what's the word for that, for when you are inscribed for fighting in an army or something? The terminology, inscription, what's it called? Draft. So they will not be drafted. Yeah? Now, That's another thing. And it's only for the male adults, mature, who are capable. And it's once a year. And if you look at the time of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anh, when from the Sham area, which is supposed to be referred as a wealthy area, from the rich it was taken 4 dinar per year. 4 dinar is about 17 grams of gold. 1 gram of gold is about $60 today, probably, something like this. And you can multiply it by $600, $700, $800 per year. And it's not from the women, it's not from the children, it's not from the elderly, the one who are not capable. And when we talk about the kharaj, which is the land tax, and the ushur, which is a zakah on the crops, the produce, Muslims pay that, which is the 10th. But the person who's not a Muslim, al-dhimma, the one who's paying the jizya, he's not paying the tax. Or that zakah. Or they don't pay zakah either, the 2.5%. Now, at the same time, one time in the time of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anh, there's a blind guy, he was begging. And he asked, what's going on? Why is he begging? And he said, well, when he was young, he was able to pay the jizya, but now he's old and he cannot. Hence, he said that he was begging. So Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said that we have done injustice to you. And he said that he should be asked about, we have to find out his situation, and the people who are like him, their situation, and they should be getting a stipend from the Baytul Mal. And he said, this is injustice that when they were young, they were paying the jizya. When they grow old, now they are begging for this. We should be taking care of it. And hence, Umar put the decree there that they should be taken care of it by the Baytul Mal, by the treasury. So the people who sometimes make this jizya as a big issue that Muslims are taking from the non-Muslims in the state, when you look at it, in reality, they are actually paying much lesser taxes compared to what the Muslims by themselves are paying in those cases. And this is again, this is also for giving them protection. And there are cases that we find in the history that when the Muslims were not able to protect them or the armies have to be pulled out, they actually gave the money back as well. Okay, so that's about the jizya, inshallah. And if there's any questions or comments about these two, zakah and jizya, and in general about the economic system in Islam, inshallah, I'll try to answer the questions. Otherwise, we'll continue and talk about the rest of the financial institutions and how the different kinds of taxations were collected. Taxation sometimes becomes maybe an incorrect English word, but the terminology Islam has used, we'll keep it with that, will be easier probably. So when we talk about zakah, we talk about jizya, we talk about kharaj, ushur, and ghanima. So we'll talk about that and the distribution of it, inshallah, next week. Any questions or comments?
Is there some country who tries to do that today?
So, is there any country who tries to do it today? No, they can't.